Hello, friends, and how are you? It's me again, George Pettignano, and this is That's Life. And I want to talk to you. You may see this ring that I'm wearing on my finger, and you may even see that I'm wearing a tuxedo tonight. I usually don't get this dressed up, but tonight's guest is the reason why I got this dressed up. It's to pay honor to a gentleman, to pay honor to a really good man. And what I want to do is I'm going to take this ring, New York Yankees championship ring, and I'm going to give it back to Mr. Ray Negron.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
I want to go through your story because this show is about happiness, entertainment, and entertainment isn't always singing, comedy, storytelling. Well, this is storytelling, but this is a real life story. And this is a story of you that was lifted up from a very bad situation in life, and then all of a sudden, right place, right time, but I don't want to think that. I want to think it's destiny. And when you talk destiny, there's got to be a bigger hand.
Well, I always believe that. I always believe that God has a plan for everybody, and I'm just a messenger, but you know what? I'll let you do your show, and you can ask me whatever you want to ask.
Oh, that's great. Well, you know what? Let's jump right into it. We're going to jump right into the year Mr. Steinbrenner discovered you because you were doing something with the gangs in the area. You were tagging something up. Why don't you tell the story of what you were tagging up and what happened?
June 29, 1973, I was outside Yankee Stadium with several of my cronies, and one guy dared me. I was always a Yankee fan, always. I loved the Yankees. Ever since I saw the movie, The Pride of the Yankees,
right,
Gary
great
Cooper.
Great movie.
And so I fell in love with the Yankee aura. And so I used to go to the stadium all the time just to watch the players go in and out, and just check them out. And I would see Mickey Mantle, and I would see, I mean, all the greats. And one day, that 1973, I was outside, and one of the guys dared me, and so I started putting an NY on the wall. And as I was doing that, all of a sudden one of the guys screams out, "Look out!" And so as they started to run, I looked out this way, and a hand has already got me. And so they dragged me into a holding cell that they had right there, because what they would do whenever somebody was caught doing something,
right,
vandalism or whatever at the stadium, they would put you in a holding cell, and then the police from the 44th precinct would come and drag you over there.
Right.
And so when they put me in the holding cell, one guy said to the other, "That's where he belongs. There's nothing you can do with these people."
Oh, what had to say something like that?
So when he said that, and I always said that guy did me the greatest favor of my life, because when he said that, the other guy all of a sudden said, "Give me the kid. Open the thing and give me the kid." And next thing you know, they're dragging me. I didn't know where I was going.
Right.
They would drag me to the Yankee locker room.
That had to be scary.
Of course
you
it
don't
was.
know what's coming now.
It was scary only because of the way the guy was dragging me.
Right.
Okay, because the guy had me like this. And so when they took me into the Yankee locker room, the guy said, "Give him a uniform. He's got damages he's going to work off." And that was because he was making me the bat boy. And so that night, I was the I actually was the ball boy down the right field line for the Yankees.
And that was working off.
And the guy that did it, the guy that caught me, was George Steinbrenner.
Wow.
Okay?
In what universe do you think that could happen?
See, the thing is that people always say, "Man, you let that old guy catch you?" That wasn't an old guy. He was 42 years old. That was a kid still.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Yep. Today, 42 is a kid.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's what he was. And after the game, he says to me, "Did you like your job?" I said, "I loved my job." He says, "You want to keep it?" I said, "I would love to keep my job." He says, "Well, then you'll talk to your guys, and you'll make sure that they don't do anything on my walls. I don't care about anywhere else, but on my walls, they keep their hands off."
Right, right.
And I literally begged my guys not to do the walls at the stadium again.
And your guys were pretty heavy duty.
No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. They were just typical we were punks.
Neighborhood kids.
Yeah.
Neighborhood kids.
We were, simple as that. No more. We weren't Al Capone or John Gotti and those guys. We were just punk kids trying to have a good time, and that was a good time for us.
Wow. Yeah. And then, well, at that time, back then, there wasn't much going on in the Bronx. The Bronx was basically...
Well, like they said, the Bronx was burning, you know, and there was always craziness, lunacy, it's sad because we've gone back to that today.
Yes.
But that's a story for another day. Yes. So it is what it is.
That's it. Now, with George Steinbrenner, I didn't know him. All I know is what I seen of him, but I always gravitate to a stronger person.
So what's your question?
My question is to basically verify that he was a really nice guy, and he just didn't want people to know.
He wasn't a really nice guy.
Oh, then I was wrong.
Okay. He was a strong-willed man with a gigantic will to win. He had an enormous ego.
Right.
From the standpoint of that's what made him great. But he was a wonderful individual away from the spectrum of the Yankees.
Right.
Okay? There was nothing that he wouldn't do for the common man.
That's what I was getting at. That's what I wanted to know.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Well, and I'm going to give you an example of that. I used to sneak. Okay, once I was working for him, as time progressed, I used to sneak kids into the ballpark all the time.
Right.
I would see Yankee Stadium, and I look at the upper deck, it's empty.
Right.
There's nobody up there. So you know what? I'm going to sneak as many of the kids from the neighborhood as possible and take them up to the upper deck and have them watch the game.
Yeah.
Okay, why would I have to sneak them in? Why? Because they couldn't afford it.
Oh, all right.
They had, they had never been inside. They lived right there. Some of them lived across the street.
And they couldn't
They had never been in the park. So I would sneak them into the park. And then this one time, this security guy sees what I'm doing, and he goes to Mr. Steinbrenner. He says, hey, Ray Negron is sneaking in all of his friends. And Steinbrenner goes, well, tell him to get his ass over here right now. And so the guy sees me and he goes, Mr. Steinbrenner wants you in his office immediately. You're done. You're done, big guy. So I'm walking in, we're walking in with him. Like at one point as we're walking in towards the office, he grabs my arm. So I just gave them right into the chest.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so we walk in, and the guy, Mr. Steinbrenner goes, I got it from here. Good job. I'll talk to you later. And so the guy walks out, and Mr. Steinbrenner goes, how many? So I said, 12. So he went into his pocket, pulled out $200. This is 1978.
Right, so that's a lot of money.
So that's a lot of money. You understand? He says, get the kids whatever they want, and if you run out of cash, come back.
Oh, wow.
And so then as I was walking out, he goes, Negron. So I stopped, because he always called me Negron.
Right.
Initially, at that time, he would, to the people, he would call me the kid.
Right.
But to me, he would call me Negron.
Now, what was your age then, and you were still the bat boy at that point, right?
Well, I was his everything guy.
Oh, so you were, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So you was Man Friday, basically.
Right, essentially, that's what I was. And so then he says to me, Negron. He goes, why didn't you tell me? And I said, because they're not associated with any group or organization.
Yeah.
So then he goes, F labels. F labels, a family show, so I can't say the word.
We'll get thrown right off. We don't want to do that.
So he says, F labels. He goes, it's not about the label. He said, it's about the heart, the person. So if you can do something you feel, he said, look, you got carte blanche from me. You know that. That's what he used to say to me. Right. You got carte blanche. He says, so, you do whatever, I trust you enough to know that whatever you're going to do for the better of man.
Right.
You understand? He always used to say that to me.
That, and you would never hear that anyplace else. You wouldn't even realize that.
No. Well, it was something, when you're a kid and you come from the Bronx and Brooklyn, you're like, in your mind, it's about getting over.
Moving forward, when did you start rising in the organization? Because you went all the way to front office.
Well, people ask me that question, and I don't know that I've risen through the ranks per se, because for me, I always felt like I was just there for him.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And years would progress. I mean, a couple of years after being there, I could play baseball. And I was actually a second-round draft pick by the Pittsburgh Pirates.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
So I could play, and one of the things that really actually broke his heart at one time was, he knew I could play, and so he had told his scouting people, Pat Gillick, who's in the Hall of Fame for scouting.
Wow. He
told Pat Gillick to watch Ray when he's playing and stuff like that, because I was playing in high school.
Right.
And so then Gillick reported to Mr. Steinbrenner, he'll get drafted, but he's not going to get drafted high. He's probably going to get drafted like 10th, 12th.
Right.
Right. And he said, and Mr. Steinbrenner told him, don't F this one up, man.
Right.
And so the draft came, and to my surprise, I was drafted in the second round.
Wow. I never knew that.
Yeah, which was a big deal by the Pittsburgh Pirates. And, I actually, believe it or not, got depressed. When I got there, I was depressed because I was missing the Yankees.
Yankees, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because as a bat boy, I was traveling with the team.
Right.
The players treated me like I was a player.
Right.
I'm the bat boy, you know what I'm saying?
Right, you're the bat boy, but you were the family. They were your family.
They were my big brothers.
Right.
Thurman Munson was my big brother, and things like that. But, the funny thing was, like with Thurman, right away, Thurman Munson and Bobby Mercer, took to me.
Right.
And they looked out for me and stuff like that. Thurman had the same type of father. His biological father was like my biological father.
Right.
Whereas he abandoned him, wasn't there for him, et cetera, et cetera. So that was something that we used to talk about all the time. And
so it was a kindred bonding.
It really, really was. And so when I left the Yankees to go to Pittsburgh,
right,
it was like, I got depressed. And I couldn't give it everything I had. Hey, what? It's not that I was Roberto Clemente or one of those guys, because I was not. Okay.
But you were good enough to get picked second draft.
Right.
So that was pretty good.
That was pretty damn good. You know what I'm saying? But I just... the
heart wasn't there.
The heart wasn't there. We would play our games, and then it would be a Saturday, so the Yankees were always on the game of the week.
Right.
And so naturally, the players would say, "Ray, your team is on." You know what I'm saying? And it was like, oh my God! And to see them, and
then you weren't there.
And I wasn't there. It was, So when I got released, what
year did you get released?
In '76.
'76, and was that just they were turning things over? Or?
No, I sucked.
Oh.
Simple as that. I saw, I didn't get hurt. I love these guys, they get released and they say, I got hurt, I broke my arm, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you sucked. Right. Say it like it is. The sooner I say I sucked, the sooner the questions stop.
Right.
Because now, I got hurt. My arm was. What happened?
And then the story goes on and on and on.
I don't want to get into it.
Let me ask you a question. You say you suck. That's strong. I'm going to say that's strong. But did you suck because you sucked?
Let me put it to you this way.
Or did you suck because your heart wasn't there because you wanted to be somewhere else?
All of the above. All of the above.
All right.
Like I always tell.
I'm trying to give you an out here.
No, there's no out because, like I always say, You know, when I go speak at the schools and all that kind of stuff, and I always say, when I proved to them, as a baseball player, when I proved to America that I couldn't hit, I went back to work for the Yankees.
Okay.
You know, and to the boss's credit, in 1977, that spring, you know, again, because I always practiced with the team. And so that spring, the end of spring training, he says to me, you can sign a contract right now, and we'll send you to our A-ball club, or you just come back to New York with us and work with me.
And they did that for you.
And so initially I was going to go back to play.
Right.
But then we had Reggie, you know, and we could see that we're, you know, the year before we had we won a very exciting championship.
Yes.
With Chris Chambliss hitting that major home run.
Yep.
You know, and so we lost in 4 games to the Cincinnati Reds.
Right.
And so he got Reggie. And now you could see that something magical
it was getting exciting.
was going to happen. And so I said, no, I'm going. I said, boss, I'm going back to the Bronx, man. I want to be there. I'll miss it too much.
There you go. Now that was something that, you know, after all of that, and you could have gone back and played on the A-League, but he brought you back. And you were happy to be back, and it was the most exciting time in Yankee. I mean, you lived it. As a young guy, loving the Yankees, loving this whole Mr. October, loving everybody that was there. I mean, that was a hot team. Tell us who was on that team.
Well, you know, we had Chris Chambliss and Willie Randolph. And Willie Randolph, I played with Willie Randolph in the Pirates.
Oh, wow.
And then Willie got traded to the Yankees in '76, and I got released and came back with Willie.
With him, yeah.
You know, so that was comical, you know. So Willie used to say to me, are you the player to be named later?
Yeah.
You know, so.
And Martin was a very big part of the team back
Billy
then.
Martin, I always have said that Billy Martin was like my father.
Wow.
He was like my father. And just because, again, same situation, his father took off. He had a very, very tough mom, strong mom like mine's.
Right.
And both our mothers were 4'11", and both our mothers were named Jenny.
Oh, wow. And don't mess with either of your mothers.
Right. Like, the one thing that I did gather, or rather get from both the boss and Billy, was their true love of children, the importance of children, nurturing children. You know.
Yeah, just like we'll get to this later, but I see you've done some writing on that too.
Yeah, well, that again, and I thank Mr. Steinbrenner for that, from the standpoint of I've always written. I could always write for whatever the reason, and I became more of a writer when I got into baseball, because I was always a fan of the writers. Right. The reporters.
Okay, yeah.
And so I would copy their styles, the Dick Youngs, the Murray Chasses, all of these guys.
Great, all the big. Now, did any of them ever take like shots at you?
No.
They always were favorable to you?
Always. The writers were always, of that era, were always very good to me, you know, because they see George Steinbrenner, you know, gave me a chance, and I did the right thing by it.
There you go. That's important.
Okay. Yes.
You didn't just rest on your laurels because you had the boss on your side.
I didn't take it for. I didn't take it for granted.
That's it, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, I didn't take it for granted. I wasn't out there with my hand. I was never with my hand out.
Right. And you know why? And you know why you did that too? Because there are people out there that I've always said respect these days is waning, and respect has got to come back. But pride in yourself of people. See, you didn't want a handout, and you wanted to show that you were worth the shot. You wanted to show, I want you to be proud of me. I don't want you to be disappointed in me, because that's the trick. Disappointment. I never did a lot of things wrong with my parents, not because I was afraid of them. I didn't want them to be disappointed in me, and that's what you had.
Well, the great Chaz Palminteri has always said, there are takers, but then there are givers. and I always like to think of myself as a giver, not a taker.
Right.
Okay, and that means a lot to me.
And you are. And I mean, I've seen in the time that I know you, I haven't ever seen you say no to somebody that needed a hand. Oh, I got some kids that could we get them to the stadium? I've seen it. I've seen you give up your time. And that's, I want to get there, but I still want to stick with the Yankees and
Let's go.
the team of the mid 70s with Strawberry. Good. Let's talk about them, and let's talk about how you helped them. Where were you in the organization at that time, and how did you assist? Because I seen the trailer, and we're going to see the trailer on the show. So, but let's talk about that.
Well, growing up, again, I had issues with my people in my family as far as addiction, etc., what have you, and I thank God that I was within the compounds of Yankee Stadium, because I honestly believe that prevented me from dabbling on drugs and alcohol and stuff like that.
Right.
Because I've only been actually drunk once in my life.
Wow.
And that was in 1977 when we won the World Championship.
Champagne. You went too much champagne.
I went with the champagne like crazy. 77 and 78. I've been drunk twice in my life. So addiction in my family was pretty bad.
Right.
And I had to learn how to deal with it, etc., what have you, and try to help in whatever way, when I could, if I could, But by the time Doc and Darryl came into the picture some 25 years later,
right,
in 1995, it was that they had been suspended, Doc by the Mets and Darryl by the San Francisco Giants.
Right.
And so they had been suspended from baseball, and someone introduced me to Dwight and Darryl, actually. And we became friends. And so then I went to Mr. Steinbrenner, and I said, would you consider helping these guys? And he says, you know the kind of beating I'm going to get, right?
Yeah.
And I said, boss, would you consider helping them? And so he said to me, I'm giving you the short version. And he said to me, if I do this, then that means that you're going to have to take a year of your life to take Dwight to rehab and all that kind of stuff. Wow. And so I had to babysit Doc for a year. I literally sent my family away because he would have to come to the house, this and that. Sometimes he have to stay at my house to come down from the drugs and things to that effect. And we fought. And when it was to the point where, as I could say to Mr. Steinbrenner, I think he's ready.
Wow.
And so then he said, okay, then I'm going to sign him. And he signed him after that season, after the 95 season. The Yankees got beat by Seattle Mariners in the playoffs. Remember that famous game? The boss called me right then and there. Within a half hour after their loss, he called me and he says, have Gooden at Ivoroni's tomorrow. That's a restaurant, Italian restaurant in Tampa.
Right.
And so that next day, we met up, and Steinbrenner wanted to see for himself. Never talk baseball, just talk life.
Right.
And at that point, he decided, okay, I'm going to sign him. You
Wow.
know? And that's how that happened. And so then the 96 season, Darryl was playing in St. Paul for the St. Paul Saints.
Right.
And me and Gene Michael had to give views of what we thought, of how they thought that this guy could help the Yankees, Darryl Strawberry. So certain people did not want Darryl there.
Right.
Okay? And so we ended up getting beat by whoever, 1-0. The offense was like a little weak, and we needed another bat. And so as I was getting into my car, security says, Mr. Steinbrenner wants you in the office. And so I ran upstairs, and when I walk in, there were like team officials like all sitting in there, and I said, oh.
That's a scary
You
thing.
know? So Mr. Steinbrenner says, "Yeah, come here.
I like that. Come here.
And so then he goes, "I want you to give us your report on what you feel about Darryl Strawberry." And so I said, "Well, let me go get it." No, verbal. So I told him I felt that Darryl would be good for the team. I thought he had his addiction problem in check right now. I said, today he's good. I said, I take a shot at him. I said, and I'm not talking about baseball. I'm strictly talking about life. And he says, okay, that's good enough for me. And I still own this team. That's good enough for me. And Darryl was there the next day. And so when the season ended, and we went to, after we won the championship,
Right.
that following spring training, they gave out the rings. So Mr. Steinbrenner had me give Doc and Darryl their rings.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so after they gave him their rings, I went upstairs to his office. And so he goes, I got something for you. And he opened up his drawer and took out this box. He flipped it at me. And I opened it up.
And it was this ring.
This ring.
Wow. That's a big deal.
Now,
Now,
But he says, you earned that.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
you brought two powerhouses to the team.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, you've seen it. And again, I mean, Mr. Steinbrenner, you came from where you came from. You came up through the ranks to where you came from. He trusted you enough because of life and your character. That's what it was. Your life and your character. And he gave you these decisions, and you nailed each one. And you helped people at the same time. I mean, if you didn't take the time and try and help and go the extra mile, because a lot of people don't like to go the extra mile. They'll do this, do that, get this, get that, and go. I'm done. If it's not done yet, what's wrong? You went the extra mile. You did the whole thing. You put the work in. You cared about people. And look at what happened. 2 superstars. And again, you're there. You're in the stadium. I'm sitting either in the stadium in the bleachers, or I'm watching it on television saying, wow, this is great. But nobody knows the backstory. And nobody knows that Mr. Steinbrenner trusted you with it. Now, I'm blown away. I really am blown away by that, because I didn't get that far in it to know. Now, continuing going with George. When did things start? Was there a point that his son was picking it up and he was leaving it off, or was it that? How did that work out?
No, he got sick. It's
Right.
I mean, well, let me just put it to you this way. I mean, you know how great he was as a man. So what happened was, Dwight Gooden, he was told, he spent 2 years with the Yankees initially, 96 and 97. And then in 1998, he was going to he became a free agent and went to the Cleveland Indians.
Right.
So Mr. Steinbrenner got a call from their general manager, John Hart.
Right.
And he said, George, I'm going to sign Gooden. He says, but I have a problem. I was told not to sign Gooden if I didn't have Negron to help me keep him clean.
Wow.
And so Steinbrenner called me in the office and told me what Hart said. And he says, would you consider going to Cleveland with Doc? And I said, but what about us? And he says, hey, you're still working for me, but you're working for them too.
Right.
He said, don't you want to take care of your friend? I want to make sure that he's going to be okay, Ray, he said.
So he cared that much.
Yeah.
He would. I'm telling you.
So, okay, I went to Cleveland. And I helped them there. And the Indians got into the playoffs.
Right.
And so Doc was in a little bit of a funk, so he would call up the Yankees pitching guru, Billy Connors.
Right.
And he would give him pointers, what to do, this and that, and Doc would use them in the game. One day, the Indians are getting ready to play the Boston Red Sox and Pedro Martinez, okay? Jim Thome, their star first baseman, who's in the Hall of Fame today, comes up to me. See, because they had me working with a team psychologist.
Really?
You know what I'm saying? So besides helping Doc, I was able to help the other players on the team.
Right.
Because now I could grab a player and say, come on, let's go see the psychologist if you're that effed up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So anyway, Jim Thome comes up to me. He says, hey, Ray, I always have trouble with Pedro. How do you think that I should go about this game? So I go, well, you asking me? I'm not a player. He says, yeah, but you was around all those great Yankees.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And so then I said, meet me in my office after BP. And so while he was taking batting practice, I called Mr. Steinbrenner, and I told him what Thome had said. He said, so what do you want to do? I said, if it's okay with you, I want to call Reggie and put him on the phone with Thome.
Wow.
You know, because nobody's ever done it better when it came to playoff and World Series time.
Yeah, Mr. October.
Yeah. I said, but I'm not going to do that if it's not okay with you. I said, so you tell me what to do. He says, I understand that Jim Thome is a very fine young man. He says, so call Reggie. If you have any issues, call me back. But call Reggie. I'm sure he'll do it.
And now stop and I have to stop you for a minute because this is George Steinbrenner. The outside, the people that don't know him, this mean, angry, he's looking to help people that aren't even on his team. Mm-hmm. He's looking to you to help people that aren't even on his team. And why is that? I guess it's because he loved baseball more than he just wanted to be the king.
Well, I think he just loved life. He loved being someone that can do something for someone. He always enjoyed being able to do something for people. Always. You know what I'm saying? Especially someone that's not connected to the situation per se. But he was always there for everybody. If there was a serious type of problem or whatever,
right,
he was always there to help. But you know, I called Reggie, and so I put them on the phone. They probably spoke for a half hour. And that game, Thome hit a home run. And yeah, that game he hit a home run.
Wow. That's, like I said, I never thought I'd get into the weeds of this. I mean, those are great stories, and it's just character builder for him, character builder for you. I mean, again, coming from where you came from, not having a great father, then having a stepfather that cared, then being in the Bronx in the worst time you could ever be, and you still rose. You rose, okay, George Steinbrenner gave you a chance, but if you screwed up, that chance wouldn't have lasted forever, because I believe that's the way Mr. Steinbrenner was too. He was firm but fair, and if you showed that you were worth it, which you were way worth it, that's what happened. I mean, so it was you. It was a chance from him and your spirit.
But he also believes in second chances.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? He was big on second chances, even though he could put the fear of God into you. You know what I'm saying? If he jumped your butt, you were in deep crap. But even though he would beat you up that way, he was still always willing to forgive and forget. If he was mad at you, within 2 to 5 minutes, it's over.
First, where did this book come from?
Well, let's start off with this one.
Okay.
This is The Boy of Steel. What had happened was I had an idea. I had taken some of the players to a hospital. I first learned of the Yankees going to hospitals when I saw the movie, The Pride of the Yankees.
Pride of the Yankees. Great movie.
And in that movie, you see Lou Gehrig, played by Gary Cooper, and the real Babe Ruth at a hospital visiting a little boy.
Right.
And they promised to hit a home run for the boy, etc., what have you. And that's something that stayed with me. And I always used to say, if I ever became a player, I'm going to do that. And when I went to work for the Yankees, I used to like go to hospitals with Thurman Munson.
Right.
And
Another guy left too soon.
But very unannounced. It was never announced. He just all of a sudden we're pulling into a hospital, or we're pulling into some place, and there's some kid, and he's there doing. And another guy that was like that too was Reggie Jackson.
Mm. And he gets a bad rap sometimes,
you know,
Reggie Jackson.
Well, he deserved certain things he deserved.
Okay.
But he never gets the credit from the standpoint of the children.
Right.
You know, and the nice things that he did for kids and stuff like that. And I always appreciated that, because that taught me. Bobby Mercer was another one that was great that way. And so that was important to me. And so as I started to get older with a little more chutzpah.
Right. I like that, chutzpah.
Yeah. I would go to players and I said, I need you to go to this hospital. I need you to go there. I would bring the kids on the field when they weren't, you know, if they may have been sick.
So you were actually organizing that?
Yeah. I just took it upon myself, and Billy Martin rolled with it. He said, do whatever you got to do. You know, and it was always like that. And then, you know, that's something that became a big deal. And so I remember one time I was at a hospital, Hackensack Medical Center,
right.
And I took Robinson Cano and about 4 other players. I had 5 Yankees with me at Hackensack. And so when we got to the hallway after visiting all the different rooms, we were 1 player short.
Right.
And so I backtracked, and I found Robinson Cano in a room with a little boy.
Oh, wow.
And he was talking to him, you know, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. And I was watching that, and in my mind, I saw this book.
Right. Wow.
And I wrote the story, and you know, we brought the kid to the stadium, this and that, and I just put it all into this book. And so I went to Mr. Steinberg and I said, I want to do a book. I said, and would you allow me to do it? I said, I don't want any of the money from the book. I want that to go to
the charity.
The charity, you know, children's a children's charity and an education, you know, and pediatric cancer and education.
Right.
That's where it went to, and not realizing this book sold almost 1 million copies. Wow. You know, and it was the International Book of the Year. For International Book of the Year, I was up against Gloria Estefan, who had done one of her books, a children's book. She writes children's books.
Right. Wow.
And so I was up against her, and there's no way I'm beating out Gloria Estefan.
But you did.
But I did.
But you did.
You know what I'm saying? That was unbelievable. You know?
That is wild.
And from there, I went on to this book, which is called The Greatest Story Never Told.
Right.
And The Greatest Story Never Told is a book about, it's basically a book about racism. Right. It's about Babe Ruth and Jackie Robinson. And it shows how Babe Ruth, because I became friendly with the Ruth family.
Oh, okay.
And so they let me like check out all of Babe's things, letters, I was privy to a lot of the Babe stuff.
Wow. And
that book was born through checking out all the stuff. And I found out some beautiful things. Like in 1940, Babe Ruth forever barnstormed,
right.
Played against the black teams, was reprimanded by the commissioner of baseball, was fined because he took a team to Cuba to play against an all-black team,
really?
etc. All of these variables. Babe Ruth, like they said, that he never got to manage, because they said, how can you manage a baseball team if you can't manage yourself? But the reality was that they were afraid that Babe would sign black players.
Right, right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Well, that's another thing I have never known.
And so in essence, this book shows you about Babe Ruth leaving. He had cancer. He left the hospital, okay? And he was in French hospital, and he left the hospital to go to Ebbets Field in 1947 to see Jackie Robinson play.
Wow.
Okay? And he was there opening day of 1947.
And he wasn't far to survive after
No,
that.
one more year.
One more year, yeah.
You know, but again, there was a lot of pride in the two. And Jackie was very proud of the fact that the Babe went to see him.
That's something.
You know? So it's a nice story. One last time, like I was against them tearing down the old Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, I kind of didn't want to see that either.
Because I believe in the spirits.
Yes, yes.
And they used to say, oh, because I used to say that, you know, what about the spirits? Oh, the spirits will cross the street. Nah, the spirits don't cross the street.
No, there was a lot of stuff that happened in that stadium that's gone now.
Yeah, exactly. And so in essence, I wanted to honor the boss.
Right.
So, you know, Mr. Steinbrenner helping the older spirits get out before they knock down the stadium and all that. It's a very sweet story, and you know, and I was very happy that the boss got to see this book before he died.
Passed.
You know, because when he died, this book was by his table.
On his table.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, so that was a big deal. You know, and then naturally, I actually did a book with C.C. Sabathia. It was baseball's first Christmas story.
Oh, wow.
You know, that meant a lot to me. You know, so I wanted to do that book, and I called it C.C. Claus.
C.C., that's cool.
And the premise to that story is that Santa Claus gets sick on Christmas Eve, and he can't go out to deliver the toys. So C.C. Sabathia puts on Santa Claus's outfit and gets on the sleigh and delivers the toys.
Oh, that's cool.
You know? And then there's Yankee Miracles, and Yankee Miracles is basically, it's my love story to the Yankees and especially to the boss. And it just, different stories about different Yankees and why I love them. Yeah. You know, whether Thurman or whoever it may be.
It's amazing. I mean, I knew you. I didn't know this deep. And I didn't know that deep of all the greats that were there. I know you did a play. The play was out, and Sal had a little cameo. I know another friend of mine, Sal Valentinetti,
yes.
He was in it.
Yeah.
He had a piece of that too.
Well, he got to play Mr. Sinatra.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's an old soul.
Yeah.
He's a young guy with an old soul.
Right.
I enjoy him, and you know how much I like Sal. So,
well, I you know, the whole thing is that I love the arts. I've actually been a member of the Screen Actors Guild for over 40 years,
right.
And have probably done 20 motion pictures.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, and I actually did a film. My last film was a film with Louis Guzman, who's a dear friend, and Brooke Shields,
right,
called Out of Order, which will be out sometime in 24.
Wow.
You know, but my first film was a film called Blue Skies Again with Harry Hamlin.
Right, right.
And Andy Garcia, etc.
There's a guy, Andy Garcia, cool guy.
Yeah, so, you know, I've worked with Richard Gere in the Cotton Club, Francis Ford Coppola.
I didn't know you were in the Cotton Club.
Yes, I was.
I love that movie too.
Yeah. So, and I played the Yankee trainer in the Joe Torre story with Paul Sorvino.
Oh, there's another great guy.
A great guy, and
great
you know,
guy.
One of my big thrills in acting was going one-on-one with Sorvino. And then after our scene, he says to me, "You really convinced me."
There you go.
You know, for him.
Yeah, that's an actor's actor.
That's an actor's actor.
An actor's
exactly.
actor.
Yeah, and for him to say that to me that meant a lot.
Wow, it's amazing. So there's that, and now you had the play. Where'd the play travel? I know you went on the road with the play. It was in New York, and you went on the road.
Well,
how far did it go?
No, we've done it in Florida, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and naturally New York, all throughout New York. You know, and we'll probably come back after we finish shooting the documentary.
Right.
You know, the documentary is it's brought to you by executive producer Chaz Palminteri.
Yes, yes. When you see the trailer, you'll know.
Ray Negron is a guy you probably never heard of. Growing up, he evolved out of the rubble in what was once described as the war zone and unforgiving mean streets of New York City's South Bronx, which in this case was a place littered with crime, violence, and abandoned buildings marking the streets. And in the broken promises of the South Bronx in the 70s, 17-year-old Ray Negron had an incident.
So because of that incident, like me seeing the killing, Bronx Tale, Ray getting arrested when he was 17 doing graffiti, your life could change like that.
Take the can, little Ray. Don't be a punk.
Give me the can.
With nothing better to do but find trouble in the burning down South Bronx of the 1970s, it's a mystery when one of the most powerful owners in all of sports collides with 17-year-old graffiti-bound Ray Negron. And he gave Ray a second chance by making him the New York Yankees bat boy. And from that moment on, Ray's story of redemption changes his life forever.
I don't really care. Isn't that funny? I don't really care whether they like me. I'd like them to respect me.
No one ever understood the pain that I was going through.
I swear to God that I'm going to be a better father than the father that he never was.
Guys like Ray came into my life, and guys like Ron Doc, that they both hooked together to try to save myself and Doc Gooden.
And basically in '95, Ray saved my life because even though my suspension, early on in my suspension, I had a couple of relapses, but Ray was right there. He never gave up on me. He helped I got to the right places. He the one started me going to the meetings.
My mom, who was doing her best, she was trying to get me a new father. So she married Cirillo, who was an incredible, wonderful man. Couldn't have a better stepfather.
In the holidays, I would get the black Barbie, she got the white Barbie. So I can understand why Ray felt this way.
But then one day,
I knew about the story because Thurman had brought it home and shared it with me because he just loved Ray so much.
the spirits of these individuals are there and they're watching. And I showed that to Derek.
Just maybe Ray Negron's shortcomings and motivational journey will be an inspiration to the millions of children around the world struggling to find their existence, living without a mentor in a divided world filled with stereotyping, jealousy, and hatred. How did this happen? This kid off the streets of the South Bronx, abandoned by his father, in conflict and insecure with the color of his skin, becomes the confidant to some of the biggest names in sports.
And then Mr. Stein, damn.
You ever hear the saying, yo, you can't make this up? You know, it's that story.
Ray Negron. You'll wish you could live his miracles over and over. Bat Boy, the Ray Negron story. A story you'll never forget.
Produced and directed by at Suffolk,
right
out in Long Island, and he's a guy who has. He saw me speaking at his school some 17 years ago, and he started collecting and as much film footage and things like that as possible.
Right.
And he knew that different people had asked me if they could do my documentary. I decided against doing a documentary, whereas they were going to pay me a certain amount at the very beginning. I said, you know what? I'll produce it with him.
Right, because then they own you. If they pay you ahead, they own you, and all of a sudden, Mr. Steinbrenner would not be the nicest guy in the world anymore.
No, because they wouldn't trust what's coming out. They'd be nervous the whole time.
That's right, because they have to have drama.
Yeah.
They can't have a good story.
See, but the thing is, my story has drama.
Right.
My own life is drama.
That's right.
So, you know, I don't have to regurgitate on everybody else's dime.
Right, exactly.
You know, and just, hey, if anybody's going to look like a fool, it's going to be me.
Right. But you're going to be far from looking like a fool. Let me tell you something. I think you found your place in heaven really quick with your life. I mean, you've done it all. You've done it all. You've been a confidant. You've been a friend. You checked all the boxes. You really have.
I don't think nobody ever does it all except for Jesus.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
I ain't gonna fight with him. So I agree with you then.
we still got along. I'm hoping that God gives me a certain amount because I still feel like I haven't done enough.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's still things to do, you know, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm speaking at Columbia on Thursday.
Right.
You know, from the standpoint of, you know, you have that whole situation between Israel and the Palestine scenario. And I never like to prepare when I go speak at schools and all that because I always go, I deal with the demographic of the situation.
Right, exactly.
And then let it, whatever's going to come out is going to come out. And I'm hoping that I don't get into any trouble, but I'm going to do the best I can because, you know, hey, my thing is about speaking on love.
That's it. And that's a big deal, and it usually comes out.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you a real quickie story.
Okay.
After the '77 World Series, when Reggie hit the 3 home runs, you know,
I remember that.
And Thurman Munson gave him the nickname Mr. October. Okay. During the course of that game, Reggie didn't want to take curtain calls.
Right.
So after this, I asked him the first time, he said no. I asked him the second time, he said no. I said, if you hit one the third time, will you then? He says, you're crazy, but I'll do it. He hits a home run the third time up. As the videotape will show you, you see me pushing him out.
Goodbye. Oh, what a blow! What a way to top it off! Forget about who the most valuable player is in the World Series. How this man has responded to pressure. Oh, what a beam on his face. How can you blame him? He's answered the whole world.
Reggie Jackson's last at-bat, probably in the 1977 series.
What a colossal blow!
And that was a monster in itself. 475 feet, probably. Look at that. Look at Torres. You don't think they know it? Feel it in there?
What are they all thinking now? After all the furor, after all the hassling, it came down to this. A whole long season. Out comes Reggie.
So then, about a month later, like I was working for Reggie, answering his fan mail, you know, whatever I did for Mr. Steinbrenner and Billy, I would do for Reggie and Thurman, okay? And so Reggie always liked to run in Central Park. He lived 79th and 5th, right across the street from Central Park. We go running through the park. As we're running through the park, who do we run into? John Lennon and Yoko Ono.
Oh, wow.
And so as we're running, I say, Reggie, John Lennon, John Lennon. But as I'm saying that, John Lennon is pointing at Reggie.
Reggie say, Reggie Jackson.
You know, because Reggie was on every cover.
That's right.
Of every, he was the biggest star in the planet at that time.
Mr. October.
Okay, and you know, except for saying hi and bye, I never said anything to John Lennon with the exception of hi, hello, and goodbye.
Right.
But because I was like a schoolgirl, I was like this, because I was a Beatle fan. I come from the 60s,
That's right.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember when they came to America in '64. And so to me, that was so huge. And to see Reggie and him talking back and forth, and it was nice. You could tell Lennon knew nothing about baseball, but it was a loving.
Yeah.
It was a loving. And as we're running, as we started to run, when they said their goodbyes, Reggie goes, man, can you believe a Beatle knew what I did?
Yeah.
You know, and that was beautiful. And I would get the opportunity to tell that story to Paul McCartney some 25 years later.
Wow. It's just how things intertwine,
Yes.
how they go. But, you know, that's the story, and that's why I do this, because the people I've had on, all great people, all have a story in life. And in their story in life, you never know unless you talk to them, unless you take the time to talk to somebody. I got to shake your hand again. I got to tell you thank you.
Thank you.
This was great. It was a different show tonight, but I think it was a show that was worth putting on. My name is George Pettignano. This is That's Life. Love yous, and I'll see you again.
Yeah, that's life.
That's life.
Oh, that's what all the people say. Sometimes you're riding high in April, shot down in May. But I know I'm gonna change that tune when I'll be back on top in June. I said that's life.
That's life.
Yeah, funny as it may seem, many people get their kicks stomping on a dream. But I know I ain't gonna let it get me down, because this big wide world is spinning around and around. 'Cause I've been a puppet, pauper, pirate, poet, pawn, and a king. I've been up and down, over and out, and I know one thing. Each time I find myself laying flat on my face, I'll just pick myself up and get back in the race. That's life. I'll tell you, I can't deny it. Many times I thought of cutting out, my heart just won't buy it. But if there's nothing shaking this here July, I'm gonna get right on TWA and fly. That's a plane. I've been a puppet, pauper, pirate, poet, pawn, and a king. I've been up and down, over and out, and I know one thing. Each time I find myself laying flat on my face, I'll just pick myself up and get back in the race. That's life. Oh, I can't deny it. Yeah, many times I thought of cutting out, my heart just won't buy it. If there's nothing shaking this here July, I'm gonna roll myself up in a big ball and